Hi, welcome to the Legislators Lounge. I'm Jim Webb, the host of the show, and co-host is Brian Chiricello. Today with us is our guest, Senator Gary Lambert, who's running for Congress in the 2nd District. Welcome.
Welcome, Jim. Thank you, Jim, and thank you very much, Brian, for having me today.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for coming on to the show.
My pleasure.
We appreciate it. Why don't we start off with maybe a little bit of an introduction for the people that who may not know you?
Yep. Well, I'm running for Congress, and been running now for about a year and a half, formally since Labor Day, but before that, of course, working on it. And as I tell people, the main reason I'm running is to continue to serve my country. I have been serving now for 35 years in the Marine Corps, both active and reserve. And unfortunately, because I would really like to stay, but I'm going to have to retire come June 1st after 35 years and a couple months. And I'm looking to continue to serve. And I look at where I think I can best serve, and I think that's in Congress. You know, just because I can't serve in uniform doesn't mean I can't find another way to serve. And you know, I look at what's going on in Congress with the lack of leadership, the gridlock, the lack of team play, and the lack of getting anything done, and I think I can do a better job. And quite frankly, I think I can do a better job than Andy Custer. So that's the main reason why I'm running.
Right. Let me just thank you very much for your service. We really
you.
appreciate that. I want to say that right off the get-go.
It's very kind of you to do that. I know a lot of people thank veterans for their service, and people thank me, and I say thank you because seriously, you know, like you had jobs that you enjoy and did. I've done it for 35 years because it's been a sheer pleasure. And I really, no need to thank me, but I thank you anyway.
Well, why don't we start off with talking a little bit about the military. I know with all the problems we have in the world, going for Congress, it's a national position which you will represent the entire country, not just New Hampshire. What do you think of the new policy of them reducing our military with everything going on over there in Russia, and then you got Iran, and then South Korea, and so forth? What do you think of all that?
Well, I think it's unfortunate because you see what weakness, and a lot of folks out there will perceive it as a weakness, like Putin and bullies like him. And so we got to be ready to fight two wars. I know people don't find that some people don't find that to be a compelling argument. But you know, after spending 35 years and getting a master's in strategy from the Army War College and going to the Air War College, we really need to be ready to take on multiple contingencies because there's a lot of bad people out there, a lot of evil people, and the only thing they understand is strength. Right. And strength brings peace, and strength means a very formidable military. So I'm for a strong military, always have been, because that's the surest way to peace.
Right. You know? And speaking of Putin, I know today I was reading where he was making a little joke about not annexing Alaska. He's kind of poking fun at the United States. I mean, that's kind of offensive. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's not only offensive, but, geez, I was just hearing yesterday they were making Jews register in Ukraine. Yeah. It's getting completely out of hand. And the reason why it's gotten out of hand is this administration and the president, unfortunately, has displayed the opposite of what should be displayed, which is strength. Rather than drawing red lines, he should be doing things. And these guys don't take empty threats. Or put it this way, they don't act in response to empty threats. They'll just look at empty threats and continue to do what they want to do.
Yeah, you know, when Mitt Romney was running against President Obama, I think he actually came up and said the biggest threat to the United States was Russia, and everybody kind of laughed at him back then. So now I think that might be a little different.
No, you're right. And, you know, I remember the day, of course, I was in for a lot of things, and the Cold War was one of them. And one of the things we used to do, and I've done it 3 times now up in the Arctic Circle, up in Norway, is prepare to have the Russians come through into Norway, you know. And we didn't cause any wars by doing that. We used to go in and take the things out of the caves, and they had all the things stored in the caves, rush to the Russian border, and then come back, you know, to anticipate that possibility. Yeah. I don't see why we're not doing that now. We've got troops over there. I think we need to show a little strength. And like I said, that doesn't mean so-called boots on the ground in Ukraine, because I'm opposed to that, just like every American is opposed to that.
Right.
But I got to tell you, to show this sign of weakness and we're not going to do anything, well, that's what happens.
Right. And what's your take on Syria? I mean, it was
Yeah.
a 3-year war.
Yep.
Assad was on the run.
Yep.
Now we hear that he's actually feeling a lot more comfortable with the fact that he's going to remain. I mean,
Well, yeah, wouldn't you? I mean, with an administration like this, when you do that, I mean, he's taking his cues from Putin. Putin's taking his cues from him. And the world is seeing that there is no longer this great power that keeps bad people in check. And it's unfortunate. And we're going to see it come up more and more and more. It's going to be Syria, it'll be Russia, and before you know it, there'll be some other guy or gal.
What's your personal feelings on this Benghazi?
Well, my personal feelings is it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy, and it's a shame, and we need to get to the bottom of it. Hey, certainly there appears to be some type of cover-up. I mean, if the president wants to end this thing once and for all, and if Hillary Clinton wants to end it once and for all, then let's get everything out in the open. Let's get these people in to testify, to get to the bottom of it. Let's get this select committee in the House going. That's one of the things I've told folks that I'm going to want to vote for and get on, if I can. And we need to get to the bottom of it. It's a travesty. And we got to do it for 2 reasons. Find out what happens, if there's a cover-up. Bring these thugs to justice, which apparently has not happened yet. They killed an ambassador. They haven't found him. And prevent this from happening again.
Yeah.
That's what we've got to do.
Absolutely. Let's get into the really big political issue is Obamacare.
Yep.
I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, hey, let's talk about what I'm going to do if I get there.
Okay.
And that is repeal, get rid of, suspend. I say stop the bleeding somehow, because no matter where I go, I know the toot and the numbers on this thing. 7 million, now I guess they're up to 8 million. I want to know who's paying, what the makeup looks like of this, and that's what we're not getting to the bottom to. But here's what I do know. As I go throughout the district, it's time and time again of folks telling me how it's hurting them. Hurting them personally and hurting them from creating jobs and moving that economic boat, or I should say the economic ocean of life up for all people so they can float higher.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to hit us particularly hard in Derry, or at least to some extent, because we have a hospital here that's not on the list that was cut. And, if you're talking people having to make the decision, which should I go to Manchester or should I go to the other hospital? Or if the other hospital even stays open, Parkland Medical Center. I mean, they're the largest employer in Derry, and they're also the largest taxpayer in Derry, and they're not on the list. So,
well, it's crazy, Jim, and of course we feel it in Nashua too with Southern Medical and St. Joe's.
Yeah.
But up in my district, in North Country, Claremont, Littleton, all those places that are being affected by this, these people are having a tough time as it is. All right, so now you take away a hospital and a doctor that they can't go to, and on top of that, why don't you throw a gas tax on top of all that, which is going on at the State House. I know you gentlemen are trying to fight.
Yeah.
But why don't you throw that on top of that? These people, I mean, what more do you need to do to these folks to hurt them?
Right.
We should be we exist to help people, not hurt them.
Right. And we're just coming out of a pretty bad recession, 5, 6, 7 years
And if you talk
of recession. We're not out of that yet.
That's right. That's exactly it. Because, no matter where I go, nobody's saying, hey, the coast is clear and we're on the fast track now.
Right.
What they're saying is, even I'm talking to some folks with a lot of money that do development, that type of thing. They go, we're on the edge. We're on the precipice here.
Right.
Of either going back or going forward. So.
Well, you could just see how volatile the stock market has been in
right.
the last week. It's, down 200 points, up 150 points down. So, with that in mind, that's the same thing. Where are we going from there? And with the Obamacare affecting every American, and actually being required, and it's actually, as the Supreme Court ruled, a tax.
Yep.
What do you think about that, about it being a tax?
Well, I'll tell you what I think about it, probably like you think about it, which is, when I went to the State House, I took a pledge, probably like you did as well, no new taxes and fees. So when I hear the word tax, well, here's what I do know. We just got done with tax day, as you know,
Right.
on the 15th.
Yeah, we just, I think New Hampshire is the 18th. That's today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, today we all paid our taxes.
Right.
So now the rest of the year we can work for ourselves.
There you go. Right. No, but I mean, I was just reading on tax day an article about how, of course, the government works on a fiscal year program from October to October. So we're halfway through that. We've got the most revenue, or have brought in the most revenue, and even adjusted for inflation, ever. Hey, so we don't have a revenue problem. We've got the revenue is coming in. We've got a spending problem.
Right.
So we've got to deal with that. Nobody seems to deal with it. What they want to do is continue to generate that revenue.
Right.
So,
Right.
Well, revenue is good,
of course it's good. We need
right?
it. Yep.
But you're never going to be able to. We also, which is a major thing, which we can talk about. We might as well go right into it. Is the national debt. I mean, that's part of the revenue issue in the.
That's right.
And
We've
all
got to bring
that,
it under
so.
control. And so, I want to do what we did. You were up there in 2010 for the
Yeah.
first time when I was up there in 2010. Look what we did. We cut by 11%. First time since World War II. Remember how they told us the sky was going to fall?
Right.
And fall.
Right.
So we can do that in Washington, but it takes a lot of hard work and it takes some guts.
Right. And it wasn't painless. There was a little bit of pain to balance that $800 million, but we did it, and within 2 years we worked ourselves out of that issue.
That's right.
I think it's the discipline that you're talking about that we need to get, especially in Washington.
Right. Just like we took the State House down that we had in 2010 to 2012. We put everybody in the chairs down there. We'd have that budget balance in no time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you put it all in perspective, because of the amount that we were $800 million in the hole,
Yep.
and we actually come back with a surplus.
That's right.
So that's a huge feat, considering that not a lot of services were cut. I mean, there were some services cut, of course, but
I mean, look, let's face it. When there's cuts made, some people are affected and they get vocal. But sometimes you have to make the tough cuts.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and then I know some of the people that were complaining before have had funds come back. So
That's right.
it was just a short couple of years. It did the state well. We get out of that $800 million deficit. So.
Well, what gets me is, the constituents I talk to go through high and low times, and they have to cut back, and they know what cut. But what, the government can't cut back like a person can? Come on.
well, you can't just keep writing checks if you don't have any money in your checking
Right.
account, right? So
And I never like to use the term cuts. I like to use, there's only so much money in the pie on the table here, and we have to divide it up. So let's have an intelligent discussion about how we divide it up.
Right. Right.
yeah.
So now let's get back to the Obamacare.
Yeah.
And up in the North Country, especially, I heard it's really tough.
It is.
We're such, New England's such a, the states are all close together. What are your thoughts about crossing state lines to get medical help, which they're not
I've
able to
always
do?
been a fan of that. Why can't we do it like car insurance? I mean, we got to have more transparency. We've got to have more across the lines interaction, and that's exactly what we need. I mean, my district borders Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts.
Right.
I mean, I got them all. So let's do it.
Yeah, the district is quite spread out. So.
It's I'm learning it pretty quickly. Actually, I knew about it before, but when you get in that truck, I got a pickup truck, and when you get in that truck and drive, you realize how big it is. And even on the western part of the state, there's some places that look like you're in Coas County.
Right.
I mean, there's some.
You know what I'm interested in? I know you've been campaigning for a while. What do you think the number one issue is that people asking you that we
Yep.
need to really
Jobs
hone
in
in
the
on?
economy.
That's the number one?
Oh, yeah, no matter where I go. Obamacare is probably a close second. Debt's up there, too, the debt and the deficit. But, the bottom line is this. You got to be able to support your family. And a lot of it goes hand in hand with Obamacare and everything. These people are having a tough time. A lot of them are underemployed. A lot of them are making ends meet, but they're working 2 or 3 jobs.
Right.
And they're waiting for that recovery. And it's coming really, really slow. And they're looking for help.
Right. And what are you basically telling them? If you get to Washington,
Yep.
what can we do?
Well, that's why every business I go into, I ask, what can I do for you? And the consensus that I'm getting is, will you please cut the red tape and the overregulation? No matter who you go to, EPA, Department of Education, Department of Labor. these people are down in Washington taking their paychecks home and they're getting increases. And what do they got to, nothing better to do, I guess, than to write more regulations that hurt businesses.
Right.
And that's what I intend to do, is get to the bottom of that, cut some red tape.
Good.
You know, I hear a lot from constituents that their biggest complaint, they're starting to be disenfranchised with the government because they feel that they're not working for them anymore, or the government's not listening, or things like that. And then I hear, why is, you know, why don't the congressmen and the senators have the same Medicare, Obamacare as we're going to be forced to take?
Right.
I mean, that's a huge, huge issue. Why don't they? That's
right.
Good
They're on the
question.
golden plan. You, the commoner, you get to stay on that bronze plan. See what I mean? No, you're absolutely right. And, you know, not to get into it, but part of the reason I'm running is because of Andy Custer and what she's up to. Hey, is she going to do a town hall one of these days? It might be nice. I mean, it's been a year and a half. She's been in there. How about doing a real live, not a telly town hall,
Right.
but the kind of town halls that I do, which is I try to be out every night, talking to folks, finding out what's important. You want to get a grasp of what's going on in this district. You put a bunch of people in a room and let them shoot questions at you,
Absolutely.
and you're going to learn what's going on.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
So
That's the best way to find out, is to get out and reach out to the people.
there's no better way.
Yeah.
We actually have invited her on our show,
I'm sure you have.
but I got an email back saying, you're not one of my constituents, sorry.
Imagine that. Well, you know what, Jim? You're not one of my constituents either, but you invited me to come on and talk about issues, and I'm sure these folks, good folks listening out there, some of which might be in my district, and even if you're not, look, there's 2 Congress men or women that come from New Hampshire, just like we have 2 senators. And so it's not like this is Texas where there's, you know, a zillion reps running around. You know, I'm going to do what's right for New Hampshire. And so I think it's important for, you know, I hope when I'm a congressman, hopefully you get to invite me again, and I hope to get back on the show.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And that's what I intend to do.
Let's go back to, well, not go back to, let's open up a new conversation with energy.
Yep.
You know, we know that oil prices are going up, gas prices.
Gas prices, yep.
You know, we went through one of the roughest winters in a long time.
Yep.
What are we going to do about energy policy?
Well, in all of the above energy policies, what we need to do, we got to look at everything. And I'm for the Keystone Pipeline.
Yeah.
I mean, let's stop being more energy independent. To me, it's a national security issue, to me.
Right.
So we need to look at all the above, and I'm into anything that helps people, you know, bring down the cost of energy and increase that. And I think part of that, and I'm not sure all Republicans do a good job at this, part of the other end of the angle is we got to get more energy efficient as well. That'll cut down on the cost of energy.
All right.
So, and that doesn't mean government involvement. That means folks doing the right thing and getting out there and making things more energy efficient. That means companies putting out more energy efficient programs that are competitive in the marketplace.
There's some diversity in energy, either hydro, solar, or any of those renewables.
Exactly.
But like that, oil and natural gas, which is big in the United States too.
The big thing, like for instance, what we don't want to do is we don't want to give companies like Solinda
That's right.
all kinds of money that really aren't going to develop the technology for us. If they're making progress, I can't see a reason why the government wouldn't want to try to help them to make us overall energy efficient. But when you just throw money at something that's going down the drain, that's not.
Well, let me tell you how I feel about that. I kind of have a hands-off. First of all, you know, let's face it, we're all Republicans, so we like less government. Less government is better. I don't think the government should be subsidizing anybody. And that includes big oil, and there might be some people out there that don't like that. But, I mean, the government does a very poor job of picking winners and losers. The marketplace decides. So, you know, I don't believe you're right, giving money to Solinda, and then again, I don't believe in subsidizing big oil either.
Right.
You know?
What was the other one I was going to talk about?
Well, we had the. We might as well continue on the energy thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned the pipeline. Now the pipeline has been pretty much stalled. For forever.
Stalled again. I just was seeing a little tweet that came in from, or a little blurb from someone on CNN that State Department apparently is putting some type of a hold on it.
And, you know, I read something one time that got me a little disturbed, is that the U.S. government is leasing a lot of our lands now, or oil-rich lands and gas-rich lands, to the Chinese.
Well, I tell you what, if that's the case, I'm hopefully putting a stop to that. Once again, there we go. You know, they don't do a good job of picking winners and losers.
Right.
What the heck are we doing leasing to the Chinese for?
Yeah.
You know, I don't get it. And that's like wanting to give away the internet or control the internet. What are you thinking, right?
Right.
We've got it. To me, that's a national security issue to an extent as well.
Definitely. Yeah.
And what are we doing there?
Yeah. I know what I wanted to ask. The electricity costs in the Northeast.
Right.
Why are we like one of the highest?
Well, we're up in the corner. We're in this grid system. We're locked in with everybody else in New England. And, yeah, it's out of hand.
I mean, that's kind of a job killer, don't you agree? I mean, we're
everywhere I go,
competing.
big business, especially BAE, which was in my Senate district.
Right.
That's a big concern for someone like them, you know?
Yeah.
Or
So-
Anheuser-Busch, I think, is one of the largest consumers in the
That's
state.
right, too, yeah. But, yeah, we've got to find ways to bring that down. Like I say, all of the above energy policy is what I see on that.
Yeah.
You can't focus on any one thing. You got to be diversified. You know, I run a small business. You got to diversify.
Right.
You just can't go all in on one.
Right.
You know?
What do you think about the small businesses being squeezed out here with this Obamacare? It's actually kind of stifling businesses, having employees, less than 50 employees. You don't have to join in and that sort of thing, or having to pay for health care and so forth. What do you think is going to happen with all that?
I can tell you what's going to happen in one business up in Littleton, because I talked to them, mom and pop. I should say husband and wife. They're young. I call them mom and pop. But I walked in, the first thing out of their mouth was, look, our insurance tripled. Our deductible is high. And we're teetering on the brink here anyway. That's on Main Street. Right. And if they don't go under, they certainly won't be able to employ others. And that's what's happening. That's,
Right.
I mean, Obamacare, hey, the wonderful thing is we've got the unions on our side on this thing. They claim it's going to destroy the 40-hour work week, which is a backbone of the middle class. You know, these Democrats, a lot of them want to talk about, you know, tax on the middle class. They're the ones attacking the middle class. You take away that 40-hour work week, and you watch that middle class disappear. It's already disappearing.
Well, right, because if you work 32 hours or more, you basically get benefits. But now some of these companies are scaling back by chopping some of a few hours off to, like, let's say 30 hours, so they don't have to pay these benefits. Well, how does that benefit everybody?
How about this? I was just reading how Gunstock Mountain might have to open up later and close sooner, because if you're on the payroll there for 120 days, you know, Obamacare kicks in. And so, I mean, let's face it, up in the North Country, tourism is one of the biggest things we got up there.
Right.
Snow, mountains, skiing, especially in the winter, snowmobiling. And now that's going to affect, you know, how long they're open.
Right.
Well, yeah, New Hampshire's prime source of income. We don't have an income tax or a sales tax, so we have to get the money from the skiing or the tourists, and
Room and meals tax.
rooms and meals tax, which is one of the highest in the Northeast, I believe, and then we have the business tax too, as well, that people are paying. So that doesn't help our jobs in the region or in this particular in our state. With the Northern Pass, they're talking it'll create some jobs. They're probably temporary jobs, but they are some jobs for now, which I suppose would be good. But as far as on a national issue, what do you think could be done to help try to lower New Hampshire's electric rates? I mean, we actually put out, from what I went to one of these conferences they had, and New Hampshire is only using about 35% of what it produces. So we're putting out more than we're using, unless it's a peak, you know.
Well, like I say, to me, it's diversification. You know, one of the folks I know out there in Wyndham, he's got a construction company, and he invited me out to kind of tour it. And he's got a massive solar situation going on there that he, you know, he was fortunate to be in construction and set it all up, but it's basically paying for itself. He's generating electricity that way. And I'm all for that. Now, I'm not all for the government subsidizing that, but I am for folks doing that. And that's how we get it. I mean, you watch the cost of electricity go down when people start producing their own.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
How about tax credits for people that do switch over to these alternative sources?
I'm game for that. I will tell you this, on the tax, if you get me going on taxes, I'm into a fairer, simpler tax system, which is what I think we need. So I'm for that if we've got the current system, but all these exemptions and deductions, and we all filled out our tax returns. My wife is a small business owner as well. And so our tax return is like yay thick,
Good thing you don't have to do a Mass one, because my federal one is like 6 pages, and our Massachusetts, because my wife works in Mass, non-resident it's 18 pages.
Right.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, even talking about taxes, I mean, look at the overall, we're talking about big business now, the corporate tax is so big that we see some of these American companies move overseas, and then they're using those profits to build those countries. I don't get it.
And they're paying zero, some of them are paying zero tax.
Gary, how do we get these companies back so they can invest back in American jobs?
We've got to provide incentives to come home. I mean, otherwise they're just going to stay there. And I can tell you one thing, everybody's got to pay their fair share, including big businesses.
Yeah.
So everybody's got to come to the table. I want some skin in the game from these companies. And that's what we've got to do. I mean, we can't let that go.
Well, we're at 35%, for some of these corporations when they can, go overseas to Ireland at 16%.
And then sell it back here, still sell their products here, and still make all that profit. It's like a lose-lose for them, unless they. I mean, I could see why they do it.
Yeah.
But I think we need to start changing things the way the government does things, because. If we tax less, it's going to give more incentive for them to come home to employ Americans. So then maybe we might actually be able to build the middle class back up, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I just was reading, I think it was 2 weeks ago, an article about the middle class. Lowest people that identify themselves as middle class is one of the lowest in, decades. And it's shrinking. And guess who's in charge of the show right now while it's shrinking? The Obama administration, Andy Custer, and that whole crowd, the Nancy Pelosi crowd.
Right.
So what they're doing is not working, and so hopefully we get a turnaround this year, and then we get a turnaround in 2016. Get a new guy in the White House, or gal in the White House that's a Republican.
Yeah, we need to turn it around. I mean, this is maybe the first time that I've seen, generation after generation, you always want to leave your kids with a better world. And, I don't necessarily know if our younger generation feel that same way, and it's kind of sad.
They don't. I'll tell you why. One of the things I made it a point to go very frequently to is the colleges. I was just up at UNH yesterday talking to the college Republicans there. Been up to Plymouth State, Keene State. And the number one thing is, what are you doing to us? I mean, the college loans are out through the roof. They have to spend half their lives paying them off. And then on top of all that, what are we leaving them? A $17, $18 trillion debt.
Right.
Oh, no, that's today.
That's today, right. But that's what we're leaving them right now when they jump out into the workforce. A workforce that's really, to some of them, non-existent.
Yeah, that's too bad.
And that's another thing that we brought up in some of the other shows with the other candidates is how do we keep, New Hampshire has a problem, whereas we do have a highly educated students that actually leave the state to go to other states. I mean, how do we keep them here?
Well, jobs, you know. One of my pet peeves, I'm a big Second Amendment guy and be a strong believer in you being able to keep what firearm you want to use. But when Connecticut and New York came up with these tough gun laws, and places like Remington and Colt said, "Hey, look, we got to find a new home." Where was Andy Custer? Where was Maggie Hassan? And I would have been at the border saying, "You got to come to New Hampshire. We got an educated workforce. You got Sig Sauer here.
Right.
You got Ruger. You got Wilcox Industries out there on the coast. Come on."
Yeah, Colt was thinking about it, but I don't know where they ended up.
I know one of the issues with New Hampshire is that they, I think it's a Ruger plant, didn't have enough people. They couldn't find qualified people to hire because people, all the young people are leaving the state. So do they expand in a state that doesn't have anybody that they can expand?
Well, I think we need to work together with them. We've got to get apprenticeship programs. We've got to help the community college system is a wonderful system that teaches people trades and skills, and we've got to focus in on that, because you're right. We've got to have a workforce that people want to come to use.
Right.
And that means so we got to focus in on education.
Well, you got, no?
Yeah, I got one. I got a good one. Let's talk about the NSA and privacy rights. I mean, we hear that almost on a daily basis.
Yep, that's out there too all the time. And you know, it's systemic. It's the IRS, it's the NSA, it seeps through every governmental agency. It seems even Obamacare. I mean, your health care records now are no longer private. We've got to get that whole place under control. I mean, I think that the animals are minding the zoo in some of these places. They go unchecked. Government unchecked will grow and be abusive.
Right.
And that's why we start. The founding fathers came up with this checks and balance system.
Right.
Yeah. We're not enforcing it, and we're not doing what we need to do.
But I mean, you hear about it under the guise of, well, we're watching terrorists, but yet, you know, you hear that they're looking at everybody's phone records, and I mean everybody. It's not just the terrorists.
Well, we got to get in there, and we've got to say, look, your job, you're right, is to find terrorists. So stick with it, and don't be sticking with and looking at and peeping into other people's business in this country,
right.
Just because they are on a cell phone.
Well, we see that even at the House when bills come up and so forth, that the number one thing people will say is, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, what do you have to hide?
Well, that's
not the point.
I personally don't.
And that's not the Fourth Amendment point.
That's exactly.
And that's not what the founding fathers had intended. You know what I mean? So that falls on deaf ears with me, and that's a bunch of nonsense. You have a right to privacy. The Constitution guarantees your right to privacy. And Don Tootin, I'm going down there to make sure you get to live under the Constitution.
Right. And if you want to listen in, you got to have a warrant and a good reason to listen.
It's in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Warrantless searches, illegal, you know?
Yep.
What do you think of drones?
Well,
spying on Americans.
Well, first of all, bad.
I think don't they have them in Keene now?
Geez, I don't know if they do. I mean, look, we're going to, I guess drones are coming in terms of like Google, Amazon, they want to do it, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't mind commercial enterprise, and I don't mind, I'm a free enterprise guy. Let's, you know, if that's what they want to do, let's let them do what they need to do. Government's a different story. When the government can peer into your house from above and, you know, just the same way as coming to your door and throwing a camera inside.
Right.
Now that's the same.
Yeah, and technology's growing so fast. I mean, I read where there's software that they put on these drones that can actually, it pretends it's a telephone signal.
Oh, yeah.
And it picks up your Wi-Fi on your phone and basically can lift whatever information they want. Now, people are like, well, why should we be so concerned? You know, when the government can trace where you've been at any time and find out your age and your medical history and all that stuff, not that that would be on that particular phone, but you know, all that kind of stuff. It's scary.
You do. I agree with you 100%, but you know, if you have nothing to hide, you really don't have to worry about it. But I do agree with you that they shouldn't be looking,
right? Because
that is a private thing. It's your private business. The United States, we're citizens. We're free citizens. Right. I think you got to take that word "free" and then look at it. When the government starts looking that close at individuals, you're no longer free.
Absolutely. And you know, when I served in Iraq, I remember talking to the folks out there that they couldn't even have conversations in their home about Saddam Hussein because they didn't know what was bugged and who was a plant.
Right.
I mean, that's the one beautiful thing about going back to our homes tonight. We get to get in there and we get to have any conversation we want with our wives or our spouses, with our children, and never have to worry about the government. And if we have to start worrying about the government, we got big problems.
Yeah.
And yours truly here is going down to put a check on that.
Good.
Now, you had mentioned the Second Amendment. What's your interpretation of the Second Amendment?
Oh, my interpretation is you get to keep the gun that you want, that you have. And I'm a fervent believer in the Second Amendment, like I am all the amendments, of course, in the Constitution. But it's near and dear to my heart. Look, I have I have many weapons and many firearms. And I don't want the government telling me that, oh, you can't have a 30-round magazine capacity because we say so. Because, hey, here's what I've learned about being in Iraq and about the Marine Corps. If it's dark and people are shooting at you and your adrenaline's flowing, 30 rounds ain't a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah.
Even at the range, 30 rounds is a
Yeah,
lot.
right. So I get a kick out of like Joe Biden with his two-round shotgun. Yeah, well, maybe you're going to miss. And everybody doesn't think you're going to miss, but you know, the average police officer doesn't hit the target every time.
What do you think of Bloomberg's last play with the guns? He's trying to create an organization that's going to go up against the NRA.
Yeah, well, good luck. Because first of all, I think the Constitution will win in the end, and I'm opposed to that, of course. And thank goodness for the NRA. I think the NRA is a great organization. I know it takes some heat, but all they're trying to do is just protect the Second Amendment.
Right.
So it's not like we're trying to overreach.
Right. You know, we always usually say it's the person behind the gun.
Yeah.
Right? When
course it is,
something
and it's
tragic like Connecticut happens, we see that. It's a
It's a
push.
mental health problem, not
But
most of the time.
then we see this young man use a knife.
Knives,
and
yeah, kitchen knives.
So we don't ban knives, but, you know.
Well, let's face it, we're preaching to the choir, at least here, and hopefully those folks out there understand it as well. But, you know, yeah, the gun is not the problem. It's the person. And I think we need to do a lot to make sure we don't get mentally ill behind guns.
Yeah.
Because anytime we have one of these massive tragedies,
Yeah.
what do we find out? They violated a ton of laws to get there, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, they probably have some mental illness.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we
Yeah,
focus
or
on that.
you know, or they were a criminal to begin with that stole the gun from somebody, or you know, is it the gun owner's fault if a gun gets stolen? You know, I don't believe so. I mean, you should have trigger locks and stuff if you have children around your house, but if you don't have anybody in your home, there's no reason for you to have a trigger lock on your gun. I mean,
I agree. Well, trigger lock to me gets in the way of defending yourself.
yeah,
I mean,
it could mean the difference between life or death for
Absolutely.
yourself.
because seconds matter, and you know, like I say, it's my Marine Corps experience, and you can't get anything in the way of getting to your gun quick. Otherwise, you may die. So
You know, you had touched on a little bit there. My wife went to one of those. We all went to an NRA course that they put on over here in the Fish and Game in Londonderry, and you'd be surprised. You say, miss, right? Part of the course is you stand like a foot away, and then you back up about 10 feet away, and you actually shoot at the target. And you'd be surprised, being 10 feet away from the target, how far off center you were on that
Right.
shot.
They actually did a study with that at one point in time because you're not constantly, you know, you got to practice quite often.
Yeah.
And that's why they have police training on that stuff. But you're absolutely right.
well, and remember, that's a controlled environment. Nobody's
Right.
shooting at you.
Right.
There's plenty of light. Safety concerns. You got your earmuffs on, so there's no blast, you know, that's affecting you there. Now just mix that up a little bit and
Oh, I
see
can
how
imagine.
accurate you're going to be.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why, practice takes perfect.
Let's get into another big issue, immigration. I
Yep.
want to get your thoughts on that.
Yep. Well, my thoughts on that is, first of all, I'm opposed to amnesty, and I want a border. I want to seal the border. Is that so difficult? So if people come up to me down there and say, let's have a discussion on immigration, I'll have a discussion. I want the border sealed first. I mean, let's build a fence. Works for Israel. We've got a fence down there in some places. Is there any reason why I'm not saying build a fence up in Pittsburgh on the Canadian border up there, but in the places we need it, let's build it. And then let's have a discussion about what we're going to do now.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
What about illegal aliens, or what do they call them now? Undocumented?
No,
Is
yeah,
No, they're still illegal to me.
undocumented.
Yeah, they're
Well, what do we
illegal.
do with, you know, maybe their parents brought them here illegally?
Yep.
And then they say, well, that's not our fault. So, you know.
Here's how I look at this. And certainly I assume I'll get an eye-opening experience when I get to D.C. because I can't see how things don't work down there.
Yeah.
But here's what I do know. Under President Obama, we've done more deportations than any other president. So if he's able to do that, what would we be able to do? I mean, I want to get into that. I want to find out why people that are committing crimes are still hanging around here, and why we're not being more aggressive there. I mean, that's what I want to find out.
You know, you got to look at the fairness too. I mean, if somebody's in the country, right, and then all of a sudden they say we have the right to stay. Now, it's costing us lots of money to educate these children and the families and so forth. And it's different if the child is born in the United States, they're an American citizen. But why should they get the privilege to go to the front of the line like they're proposing? Some of the people are proposing, let's let everybody stay and have amnesty. And what's going to stop this from another big circle and happening again?
Well, just think if they do. Can you imagine if they did give amnesty? Can you imagine what would happen? Look, I am, my mother's an immigrant, a legal immigrant. She came here, she told me how difficult it was,
right.
the kind of standards that had to be in place for sponsors. And, but everybody worked together to make sure you didn't fail.
Right.
And sponsors were working with you. We need to get back to the basics here. And that wasn't too long ago. That's in my mother's lifetime.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do.
Well, I have one for you that it'll kind of roll against two questions, and they kind of rolled into each other. One is somebody recently just told me that they had, I guess it's common now, but when they became an American citizen, they were able to do it in Spanish and not in English. What do you think about? Yeah, actually, they didn't have to do it in English.
I don't know. To me, if you want to become an American citizen, there's certain basic requirements, and you got to be able to get by, I think, in English. I mean, I would think. That is the language we speak it. Now, look, you're talking to someone who can speak and understand German pretty well, because my mother spoke to me in German when I was growing up in the house. Right. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't taught English as as a language that you got to have to get by on.
Right.
Yeah. And then go into the education portion of that is the Common Core.
Yep.
I mean, that's a national thing at this point that we're all trying to meet those standards. What do you think of that?
I'm opposed. Always been opposed to Common Core. Here's my feeling on a lot of things, especially education. The state can do it better than the federal government, and local communities can do it better than the state, generally speaking. I know there's exceptions to the rule, but one size does not fit all.
Right.
And why should we be forced? I mean, why should someone in Wyoming be forced to do the same thing that we're doing here in New Hampshire? That's why we got states.
Right, exactly. Another news issue that's we're always seeing lately is marijuana.
Yep.
Colorado, Washington have passed it,
know.
and where everyone's watching those states to see what's going on, and you kind of get a mixed review about that because. Colorado is saying that the revenues are just incredible coming in. Yeah. And so some tax relief there. But what's your thoughts on?
Well, my thoughts on that is revenue is not everything. So I've got, as I tell people, I've kind of got a lot going on with well, I should say, when I was at the State House, remember we had medical marijuana come through? I initially started out being opposed to that.
Right.
I was on Health and Human Services Committee, listened to the testimony, compelling, overwhelming, they sold me. So I voted for medical marijuana. Yep. Now that said, I can't see myself ever wanting to legalize marijuana. I just can't see it. I mean, look, I've never tried the drug. Personally speaking, for all, maybe too much information.
Even if you didn't inhale?
I didn't inhale, I didn't touch, that's not me. I had other vices, I suppose. But that, I can't see myself ever going there, because there's a study that just came out in the Journal of Neuroscience, I think it was, that said your brain is changing with that. I mean, to me, I don't care what people say, it's a gateway drug. Okay. And it's just not going to, and I think the Colorado experiment will fail, and we're going to wait to see if it does, but I'm not ready to legalize marijuana.
Well, I actually voted for it here in New Hampshire, but my reasons behind it is it is revenue, and even if it's not for the residents in New Hampshire, it's revenue that we might be able to pull in from other states. Yeah, and we sell our liquor on our liquor stores. Yeah. On the highways.
I think that, and that's what the beautiful thing about New Hampshire, we can sell liquor on the highways, and I know people from out of state kind of laugh at that. They're like, what are you doing? But, do we have any problems? Normally not. I just think there's a big difference between liquor. I'm sorry to seem old-fashioned when it comes to that, but well, maybe just that's the way I am. But I think there's a big difference between liquor and marijuana.
Very good.
So,
well, what about, I know we got about 7 minutes to go, but let's talk real briefly about infrastructure and the needs. I mean, we went through that really tough recession.
Yep.
We've heard, especially in our state, about no infrastructure getting done for many years, or a lack of.
Right.
So infrastructure leads to jobs.
Right.
How do we get this infrastructure done if it's not going to be a gas tax or anything? I mean,
well, to me, it's kind of, I mean, that's a state's issue. I mean, as far as how you're going to do the roads and everything. And as far as the federal government, I'm a firm believer in infrastructure, because I don't think the government should be involved in too many things,
right.
but infrastructure is one of them. You got to keep the roads going, and you got to make sure that they're there. So I think that's one of the essential functions of government, and even of the federal government, is to do that. So let's take some of that fraud, waste, and abuse going on down there. And you're right, build roads, build rail, get infrastructure going, and create jobs, and the rising tide floats all boats, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree with you that the infrastructure part is important, but the thing is that by raising taxes, though, like on the gasoline, that my personal view is that's not going to help.
I agree. That's only
a
going to hurt.
temporary fix.
Well, and it's going to hurt. There's people out there seriously that have a tough time filling up right now. Now you add that. I mean, I'm not sure a lot of people understand what's really going to happen this summer, because you're going to have the perfect storm. Gas prices always tend to go up, and now you're going to add a gas tax to it, and I think you're going to see a lot of hurt.
Yeah.
Out there.
You actually hit it right on the head. Actually, I just read an article where regular gas is going up.
Yep.
And now we're talking about that increase.
And the threat of a hurricane, who knows what might happen, or anything. They use any excuse they can.
I got to tell you, this is not the time. It's not the time to have that discussion. It's not the time to raise a gas tax. Different time when people are doing better, maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for people like my daughter, for instance, she lives over in Somersworth and drives to Portsmouth. Right, so when the price of gas is $4 a gallon and the car only gets 20-something miles to the gallon, it's costing her a few dollars a day to go to work. And then they cut her hours because they don't want her to get 32 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, on top of it all, that's right. So, like I say, it's a perfect storm, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we exist. We exist to cure that, to help that, not to make it worse.
Yeah.
Right. So, Gary, if you get elected, you go down to Washington, what committees do you want to go on?
I think I have a special background, and a long background in the military, of course, serving in many countries, and I'd like to be on armed services.
That sounds like a natural fit for you.
Yeah, I think so. And I'd like to be on oversight. As we've talked about some of this fraud, waste, and abuse. The Benghazi thing really gets me, and I'd like to be involved in that. Maybe Homeland Security, intelligence.
Yeah.
I think that's where my background is best suited to serve my country and my constituents.
What do you think of the 2-year terms? Like senators are 6 years.
Yeah.
Congressmen a 2-year. It's like before you know it, you're bad of an eye and it's gone.
I know. I don't so much have a problem with that. I do have a problem with hanging around very long down there. Like I tell people, the Congress is term limiting me in the Marine Corps. You can only do 30 years as a as a colonel.
Right.
I'm going down to term limit them. They want to term limit me. It's time to bring the cows home to roost, so to speak, or the crows home to roost. But I don't know. We can pick a number: 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, maybe somewhere around there. I think it's time for term limits. I think part of the problem down there is people making a career out of that place.
Yeah.
Washington, D.C. should not be a career. I mean, I'm 54 years old. I don't intend to make it a career. I've had a great career up until now.
Yeah.
And to me, that's giving back to my country in another way. But I don't want to be down there for 20 years.
Right.
And I won't be. That I can assure you.
Right. Well, I think we're kind of wrapping up. So I think we want to give you a couple of minutes to take a look at the camera and kind of let the people know. Maybe if you have a website where they can get more information.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, first of all, my website is Lambertforcongress.com. You can go there, learn more about me. You can also call me anytime you want. Here's my cell phone number, 438-6333. I want to hear from you, and I want to hear what's important to you. And here's what I promise you. I am going to be accessible. You can find out where I'm at. I'd love to hear, or give me a call. I'll tell you where I'm going to be at. You can come out, speak to me. But I am going to work very, very hard for your vote. That's how I won my state Senate seat in 2010. I was the first Republican in 94 years to win that. And I did it by hard work getting to know people, and show them that I really cared about what was important to them.
Great. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you for being on our show.
Thank you.
This is the Legislators Lounge. We also have a website. Our website is derrylounge.com, www.derrylounge.com. We also have a Facebook page, and we have a YouTube channel. This video and all our other videos are available on the YouTube channel. And once again, my name is Jim Webb, and co-host Brian Chericello, and thanks for being with us.